Adolf Hitler, The Life of a Dictator. Adolf Hitler remains one of the most controversial and infamous figures in modern history. His rise to power, the establishment of Nazi Germany, and the devastating impact of his actions, especially during World War II and the Holocaust, left scars that are still felt today. This is the story of how Adolf Hitler, a failed artist, became the dictator of one of the most powerful regimes in history and led the world into one of its darkest chapters. Early life and ambitions. Born on April 20, 1889, in Braunau am Inn, Austria, Adolf Hitler was the fourth of 6 children to Alois and Clara Hitler. His early life was marked by a turbulent family environment. His father, Alois, was strict and domineering, while his mother was described as kind and nurturing. Despite his father's attempts to push him into a career in the civil service, Hitler's heart was always set on art. However, after failing to gain acceptance into the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, his life took a different path. During his time in Vienna, Hitler lived in poverty, struggling with feelings of rejection and anger. He developed a deep resentment toward Jews, whom he blamed for many of society's problems. It was during these years that Hitler began to formulate the racist, anti-Semitic ideology that would later become central to his policies as the leader of Nazi Germany. World War I and its aftermath. When World War I broke out in 1914, Hitler enlisted in the Bavarian Reserve Infantry. Serving on the Western Front, he was wounded twice, and in 1918 he was temporarily blinded in a mustard gas attack. The war's end, however, was even more traumatic for Hitler than his injuries. Germany's defeat and the subsequent signing of the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 left him with a deep sense of humiliation and anger. He became convinced that Germany had been betrayed by internal enemies, Jews, communists, and the Weimar government, and that only a strong leader could restore the nation's greatness. The Treaty of Versailles, which imposed heavy reparations and territorial losses on Germany, became a focal point of Hitler's propaganda. He viewed it as an unjust punishment that needed to be reversed. Rise to power. In the early 1920s, Hitler joined the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, or the Nazi Party. With his powerful oratory skills and fiery speeches, Hitler quickly became the party's most prominent figure. He preached a vision of a united Germany, free of Jews and other perceived threats, and promoted the idea of Lebensraum, living space, for the German people, which called for the expansion of Germany's borders to the east. In 1923, Hitler and his followers attempted a coup known as the Beer Hall Putsch. The failed coup landed Hitler in prison, but it also brought him national attention. While incarcerated, he wrote his autobiography and political manifesto, Mein Kampf, in which he outlined his extreme nationalist and racist views. He argued that the Aryan race was superior and that Jews were a threat to Germany and the world. After his release, Hitler focused on building the Nazi Party into a major political force. He capitalized on the economic hardships that Germany faced during the Great Depression. By promising to restore Germany's pride and economic stability, Hitler gained widespread support, particularly from those who felt betrayed by the Weimar Republic. In 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Once in power, he moved quickly to consolidate control. The Reichstag fire in February 1933 gave him the pretext to suspend civil liberties and arrest political opponents. By March 1933, the Enabling Act was passed, granting Hitler dictatorial powers. The Nazi regime and expansion. Once in control, Hitler implemented his vision for a totalitarian state. The Nazis sought to control every aspect of German life, from the education system to the media, all while suppressing dissent through violent repression. The regime pursued an aggressive foreign policy, aimed at reversing the territorial losses of World War I and creating a greater Germany. In 1938, Hitler annexed Austria in the Anschluss and later demanded the Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia with a significant ethnic German population. When Czechoslovakia refused to comply, Hitler's forces marched into the country, taking over the entire nation. Despite warnings from other European powers, Hitler's actions were met with little resistance, signaling the growing strength of Nazi Germany. In 1939, Hitler's invasion of Poland marked the beginning of World War II. The German military, utilizing blitzkrieg tactics, quickly overwhelmed the Polish army and divided the country with the Soviet Union, which had signed a non-aggression pact with Germany. The invasion of Poland prompted Britain and France to declare war, officially starting the conflict that would engulf the world. The Holocaust. Perhaps the most horrific and defining aspect of Hitler's reign was his implementation of the Holocaust. Driven by his racist ideology, Hitler and his regime systematically exterminated 6 million Jews, along with millions of others: Roma, Gypsies, disabled individuals, Slavs, political dissidents, and others deemed undesirable. The genocide was carried out through mass shootings, forced labor camps, and death camps such as Auschwitz, where millions of innocent people perished in brutal conditions. The Holocaust remains one of the most horrific atrocities in human history and continues to haunt the collective memory of humanity. World War II and decline. As the war progressed, Germany initially experienced rapid military success, conquering much of Europe. However, Hitler's overexpansion eventually led to disastrous consequences. The invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, known as Operation Barbarossa, proved to be a fatal mistake, as the harsh Russian winter and Soviet resistance halted the German advance. By 1944, the Allies had launched a successful invasion of France, and German forces were being pushed back on all fronts. Despite the worsening situation, Hitler remained obsessed with his vision of German supremacy and continued to demand unrealistic military strategies. His leadership became increasingly erratic, and the morale of both the military and the civilian population began to deteriorate. The end of Hitler's reign. As Allied forces closed in on Berlin in 1945, Hitler's health deteriorated and his mental state weakened. On April 30th, 1945, in his bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery, Hitler committed suicide alongside his wife, Eva Braun, as Soviet forces advanced on the city. His death marked the effective end of Nazi Germany, though the war continued for a few more days. Germany officially surrendered on May 7, 1945, marking the end of World War II in Europe. The legacy of Hitler's reign was one of devastation: millions of lives lost, entire cities destroyed, and the world forever altered by the horrors of war and genocide. Conclusion: Adolf Hitler's life is a tragic and horrifying story of how one man's extreme ideologies, unchecked ambition, and ruthless pursuit of power led to the destruction of millions of lives and the destabilization of the world. His regime serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of totalitarianism, hatred, and intolerance. The lessons of Hitler's rise and fall must never be forgotten, as they continue to resonate with the need for vigilance in the face of hatred and injustice.